The human stayed when the guards ran, protecting the alien queen even at night. It breathed with soft sounds. Floating lamps humming, distant fountains whispering, servants moving like shadows, guards stepping in perfect rhythm. The royal complex of Queen Surith Vale was built to feel alive, as if the walls themselves were loyal. Tonight, the palace went silent in a single heartbeat. One moment, bright light poured through crystal arches. The next, everything flickered and died. The air turned cold. The floating lamps dropped from the ceiling like tired birds and shattered on the floor. The fountain stopped mid-song. The comforting hum of the palace systems vanished. In the sudden darkness, panic arrived like a storm. Alarms tried to rise, but they came out broken, short bursts of sound, then nothing. The wide halls filled with confused voices. Feet ran across polished stone. Doors slammed. Somewhere far away, a heavy blast shook the ground and dust fell from the ceiling in thin gray sheets. Ilya's ward froze for half a second, listening. He was human, and humans were good at hearing danger in silence. Ilya stood near a tall window in the diplomatic wing, his back close to a pillar, his hand already moving to the small device on his belt. He worked as security for the human embassy team, mostly boring duties. He watched meetings, checked routes, and kept diplomats from doing foolish things. But his job had another quiet part. If anything went wrong in the palace, he was trained to protect the people around him until help arrived. He clicked his communicator, static. He tried again, switching channels, more static. The palace systems were down, that alone was bad. But the way the lights died, fast and complete, felt planned. Elias took a breath and forced his mind to stay calm. Panic was a fire, it spread if you let it. A tall alien guard ran past him, armor reflecting faint emergency glow from distant panels. The guard's eyes were wide and his breathing was sharp. "Guard," Elias called. "What happened?" The alien did not stop. He only shouted back in broken trade language, "Attack, fear weapon, evacuate." Then he disappeared into the dark. Elias frowned, a fear weapon. He had heard rumors. Some species used mind pressure technology, a kind of signal that made living minds feel terror for no clear reason. Most races broke fast under it. Even trained soldiers could run. Humans were different, not immune, not exactly. But human brains were messy and loud in their own way. Elias had been through panic drills, battlefield simulations, and hard memories from his past. Fear lived in him, but it did not control his legs. He moved down the corridor toward the central palace, keeping close to the wall. The floor was slick with fallen glass from lamps. He stepped carefully, eyes scanning. The darkness made everything feel wrong. A second blast thumped through the structure. This one was closer. He heard a scream, then silence again. Elias passed an open doorway and saw two palace staff crouched behind a table. They were shaking. One was whispering something like a prayer. Their eyes locked on him. "Stay low," Elias said softly. "Find a secure room, lock it. Don't run through open halls." They nodded without speaking. He moved on. The further he went, the stranger the atmosphere became. He began to feel something pressing at the edges of his mind like a heavy fog. It wasn't a voice, but it carried emotion, fear, dread, the sense that something terrible waited just around the next corner. Elias stopped and swallowed. His heart beat faster, but he did not lose control. He recognized the feeling for what it was, an attack meant to make him run. Instead, he used it like a warning bell. If the fear signal was strong here, then the enemy was close, or the source was nearby. He breathed slowly, steadying himself. "Not today," he muttered. Ahead, the corridor opened into a wide hall lined with tall statues of past rulers. Emergency strips along the floor gave weak blue light. Shadows stretched long and twisted. And there, near the center, stood 3 royal guards. They wore heavy armor with the queen's crest. They were supposed to be unbreakable, but they weren't moving forward. They were backing away. One of them stared into the darkness ahead as if seeing something that wasn't there. His weapon shook in his hands. "No," one guard whispered. "No, no, too many." The third guard suddenly turned and ran, armor clanging. The others followed, stumbling like frightened animals. Elias stepped forward. "Hey, where is the queen?" One guard glanced at him, eyes wild. "Sanctum," he gasped. "We cannot." Then he ran too. Elias stood alone in the statue hall, the fear pressure stronger now. The air felt thick. His mouth tasted dry. The queen. The throne sanctum was the heart of the palace. It was where Queen Surith would be taken during emergencies. It was also where she would be most vulnerable if the guards broke. Elias' training gave him 2 choices. run to his assigned team and survive, or go toward the danger and protect someone who might already be abandoned. He did not even feel like it was a choice. He started toward the sanctum. The path led through an archway marked with royal symbols. The walls here were made of dark metal that absorbed light. Along the ceiling, small nodes were supposed to glow, but they were dead. Elias moved slowly, listening. A faint scraping sound came from the right, like metal dragging against stone. He pressed himself against the wall and peeked around the corner. Two figures in palace maintenance suits stood near a security panel. One held a cutting tool. Sparks jumped in small bursts. They were sabotaging the lock system. Elias felt a cold anger rise in his chest. He did not shout. He did not rush. He lifted a compact stun unit from his belt, an older human tool, simple and reliable. He aimed, waited until both figures were close together, and fired. The stun pulse snapped through the air with a sharp crack. Both figures stiffened, then fell, twitching. Their tools clattered to the floor. Elias ran forward, kicked the cutting tool away, and checked their faces, not palace staff. Their skin color was wrong for the local species. Their eyes had a strange, reflective film, infiltrators. He moved to the security panel. It was damaged but not destroyed. Elias didn't know alien systems well, yet basic locks were still basic locks. He found an emergency override and pressed it. The panel beeped weakly and died again. The door to the sanctum was ahead, tall, layered, and heavy, built to resist explosives. It stood slightly open. Elias' stomach tightened. He slipped through the gap. Inside, the throne sanctum was dim. It was not a single room, but a circular chamber with high ceilings and smooth walls. A throne-like platform sat at the far end, surrounded by carved symbols that looked like frozen waves. And on that platform sat QueenHFY. She was tall, slender, and very still. Her crown was not a metal object, but a living band of shaped crystal that grew around her head like a halo. In the weak light, it looked like moonlight trapped in glass. Her eyes lifted to Elias as he stepped in. For a moment, neither moved. Then the queen spoke in calm trade speech, her voice soft but clear. "You are human." Elias lowered his stun unit slightly, not careless but respectful. "Yes, your majesty, Elias Ward, embassy security." "Where are my guards?" she asked. Her tone did not shake, but something in her eyes did, something small and controlled, like a crack under ice. Elias did not lie. "They ran." A long silence followed. The queen's fingers tightened on the edge of the throne platform. "They were made not to run." "Fear can break anyone," Elias said, choosing his words carefully. "Even the best." The queen studied him. "Then why are you here?" Elias looked around the chamber. There were no guards inside, no servants, no advisors. The doors behind him were the only way out. He thought of the empty hall, the statues watching, and the sound of armor running away. He faced the queen again. "Because you're still here." Her gaze sharpened. "That is not an answer." Elias exhaled. "Okay, because someone has to stay." The pressure of fear swelled again, heavier than before. Elias felt his hands sweat. A part of him screamed to turn around, to run out, to find safety. But another part, older, harder, remembered what happened when people ran and no one stayed. He walked to the main door controls and pulled a manual bar across the inner frame. Then he pushed a heavy ceremonial table in front of it, straining. The table scraped loudly across the floor. The queen watched him without speaking. Elias returned to the center of the room and looked at the other entrances. There were small side passages, likely hidden routes. He moved to each, checking. 2 were sealed. One had a thin gap at the base, like it had been opened recently. He blocked it with a fallen pillar piece, breathing hard. Then he stepped back toward the queen. "Your Majesty, do you have any active comms in here?" The queen lifted one hand. A small device on her wrist glowed faintly. "The palace network is gone. But this chamber has an independent signal. It is weak." "Try to send a distress call," Elias said. "To your fleet, your loyal forces, anyone who can reach you." The queen's eyes narrowed slightly. "And you?" "I'll buy time," Elias said. The queen looked at him as if he had spoken a strange language. "Buy time," she repeated. Elias gave a short, humorless smile. "It's a human habit." The fear pressure pulsed again, stronger now. Elias felt it like hands pressing against his chest. Outside the chamber, faint footsteps echoed, not running footsteps, slow footsteps, controlled. Elias lifted his stun unit and took position near the main door, legs apart, steady. He glanced back once at the queen. She was no longer perfectly still. Her head tilted slightly, listening, understanding the sound too. Human Elia's ward, she said quietly. Yes, your majesty, your people they are not bound to serve. No, Elia said, we choose it sometimes. The footsteps stopped outside the door. A soft tapping began, like someone testing the material, searching for a weak point. Elias tightened his grip. His mouth was dry, but his eyes were clear. The Queen's device began to glow brighter as she tried to send her signal into the dead air. Elias did not know if help would come. He only knew one thing for sure: when the guards ran, the human stayed. And now the darkness on the other side of the door was waking up. Elias stood still, muscles tight, stun unit raised. His breathing was slow and careful. He had learned long ago that silence after noise was often worse than noise itself. The Queen remained seated on the raised platform. Her posture was calm, but her eyes followed every small movement Elias made. She was not afraid in the way humans showed fear. Her fear was quiet, controlled, pressed deep inside. Then the tapping returned. This time it came from two places at once. Elias turned his head slightly. The sound was careful, almost polite, like fingers testing glass. Whoever was outside was not rushing. They were studying the door. They're smart, Elias muttered. The Queen heard him. They are not palace guards, she said. Their minds feel sharp, focused. Elias nodded. That matches what I saw. He moved a step to the left, lining himself up with the narrow gap between the door and the wall. If the door opened even a little, he wanted a clear shot. The fear pressure pushed harder now. It crawled along his thoughts, whispering old worries. You are alone. You will fail. You will die here. Elias clenched his jaw. He had felt this before, not from alien weapons, but from life. From nights when he thought he was not enough. From days when everything went wrong and no one came to help. He did not fight the feeling. He accepted it. Fear did not mean stop. Fear meant be careful. Behind him, the Queen's wrist device pulsed again, then dimmed. She lowered her hand slowly. The signal is not leaving the chamber, she said. Something is blocking it. Elias frowned. A jammer? Yes, a very strong one. Then they planned this, Elias said. They didn't just want chaos, they wanted you. The Queen's eyes darkened. That is troubling. Another sound joined the tapping, a low hum rising and falling. Elias recognized it. Cutting tool, he said quietly. Different from before. Stronger. The door shuddered once as a small section began to glow faint orange. Elias stepped closer to the Queen. Your Majesty, is there any weapon system in this room? Anything we can use? The Queen hesitated. This is a place of rule, not war. There are defenses, but most require guards to activate. Figures, Elias said. He scanned the room again. The sanctum was beautiful, but not built for a fight. Smooth walls, wide open space. No cover except the throne platform and a few decorative pillars. He dragged one of the lighter pillars closer to the door and crouched behind it. Your Majesty, he said, keeping his voice calm, if they breach, stay behind the throne platform. Don't run unless I tell you. The Queen looked at him closely. You speak as if you expect to fall. Elias gave a small shrug. I expect to get tired. That earned him a strange look, almost confusion. The cutting sound grew louder. The metal around the door glowed brighter. The Queen spoke again, her voice low. Human Elias Ward, you were not bred for loyalty. You were not sworn by blood or code. No, Elias said. I signed a contract and got a badge. Then why do you risk yourself for a ruler not your own? Elias paused. He could have given an easy answer. Duty, training, orders, but none of those were true. I grew up in a place where people ran a lot, he said quietly. Ran from problems, ran from each other. Someone always paid the price. The Queen listened without interrupting. I decided a long time ago, Elias continued, that if I ever had the chance to be the one who stayed, I would. The door cracked. A thin line split across the surface, light spilling through. The cutting tool finished its work, and the metal slab fell inward with a heavy crash. Elias fired instantly. The stun pulse hit the first shape through the gap, sending it stumbling back with a sharp cry. Another shape rushed forward, moving fast, low to the ground. Elias fired again. This one dodged. The attacker rolled into the room, smooth and practiced. It was tall, lean, with dark armor that seemed to bend light around it. Its helmet had no clear face, only a curved visor that reflected Elias' outline. The fear pressure spiked hard. Elias' hands shook for half a second. Then he planted his feet and steadied his aim. The attacker lunged. Elias fired point-blank. The stun blast hit square in the chest. The armor absorbed some of it, but not all. The figure slammed into the floor and skidded to a stop, twitching. Before Elias could breathe, another attacker appeared at the door, then another. Three now, Elias backed toward the center of the room, keeping the throne platform behind him. He fired again, hitting one in the shoulder. It stumbled but stayed standing. "They've adapted," Elias said through clenched teeth. The Queen stood up. Her movement was slow, deliberate, but it carried weight. The living crystal of her crown brightened, casting pale light across the chamber. The attackers hesitated. For a moment, Elias thought they might retreat. Instead, one raised a device and aimed it at the Queen. Elias did not think. He ran. The shot fired a beam of sharp white light, but Elias slammed into the attacker before it could reach her. They crashed into the floor together. Pain exploded through Elias' side as something struck him. He rolled, gasping, and felt warmth spreading under his uniform. He forced himself up anyway. The attacker tried to rise. Elias brought his stun unit down hard on its helmet, smashing it. The figure went still. The other two attackers moved again, spreading out. Then something unexpected happened. The Queen raised both hands. The symbols carved into the floor around the throne platform began to glow. Elias felt a strange sensation in his head, not fear this time, but clarity like fog lifting. The attackers froze. They staggered, hands going to their heads. "What did you do?" Elias shouted. "I opened my sight," the Queen said, her voice echoing slightly. "I see their minds." She swayed. Elias realized with alarm that whatever she was doing was costing her strength. "Can you hold them?" he asked. "For a moment," she said. "That's enough." Elias fired again, taking down one attacker. The last tried to flee, but Elias tackled it near the door and stunned it into silence. Then the room went still. The fear pressure dropped suddenly like a storm passing. Elias stood there, breathing hard, blood soaking into his side. His legs trembled, but he stayed upright. The Queen lowered her hands and sat back down slowly. The glow faded. "You are wounded," she said. "I've had worse," Elias replied, though his vision blurred slightly. She studied him with new intensity. "I broke a sacred law just now." Elias blinked. "Sorry, I looked into your mind," she said. "I had to understand how you resist them." Elias frowned weakly. "And?" Her expression was unreadable. "Your mind is loud, chaotic, pain, hope, anger, kindness, all layered together. There is no single thread to pull." He gave a rough chuckle. "Sounds about right." The Queen leaned forward. "Our fear weapons work by finding a core weakness. Humans do not have one." "Trust me," Elias said. "We have plenty, they're just all different." The Queen was silent for a long moment. Then she said softly, "All my life I was taught that loyalty must be enforced, that without control order fails." She looked at Elias. "You are uncontrolled, and yet you stand." Elias shifted his weight, wincing. "Standing is easier than running sometimes." Outside the sanctum, distant sounds echoed again. Movement, shouts, the clash of fighting far away. Help or more trouble. Elias couldn't tell. He glanced at the blocked door, then back at the Queen. "We're not done yet," he said. The Queen straightened. "Then neither am I. For the first time since the attack began, she did not look like a ruler waiting to be saved. She looked like someone who had chosen to stay." Elias leaned against a pillar, pressing his hand to his wounded side. The bleeding had slowed, but every breath sent a dull ache through his ribs. He forced himself to stay alert. Pain could wait. Survival could not. Across the chamber, Queen Surith watched him closely. "You should sit," she said. "Your body is failing." Elias shook his head. "Not yet. If I sit, I might not get back up." The Queen accepted this without argument. Instead, she turned her attention outward, her eyes unfocused, as if listening to something far away. "The fear signal is changing," she said slowly. "It is not as strong, but it is more focused." Elias frowned. "Meaning?" "They are adjusting it," she replied. "Learning from you." Elias let out a breath. "Great, I always hate being a lesson." The Queen looked at him. "You joke while bleeding." "It helps," Elias said. "Keeps my head straight." She studied him for a moment longer, then nodded once. "Then speak, human, keep your head straight." Elias managed a weak smile. The footsteps returned, not rushed, not careless, many this time. Elias moved back toward the door, dragging another piece of fallen decor into place. His movements were slower now, but still controlled. "They won't rush again," he said. "They'll try to break us without breaking the room." The fear pressure returned, but different, sharper, more personal. Elias suddenly remembered his childhood home, a small room, raised voices, a door slammed hard enough to shake the walls. His heart skipped. He clenched his teeth. The Queen noticed immediately. "It has changed," she said. "It is showing you memories." "Yeah," Elias said quietly. "They're digging." The air felt heavy, pressing down on his thoughts. The fear weapon no longer screamed terror. Instead, it whispered doubt. You are weak, you cannot win, you are alone again. Elia's knees bent slightly. The queen rose from the throne. She stepped closer, careful, graceful. Human Elias, she said softly, look at me. He did. Her eyes were calm, steady, anchoring. You are not alone, she said. I am here. The words hit harder than the fear. Elias swallowed. Funny, he said. That helps. Outside the door, a voice spoke. It was translated by the queen's implants, carrying clearly through the sealed chamber. Human defender, the voice said. Your resistance is noted. It is unnecessary. Elias raised his stun unit even though he could not see the speaker. Funny, he replied. I was thinking the same about your invasion. The queen glanced at him. They speak directly. Means they think they're winning, Elias said. Or they're curious, the voice continued. You feel fear, we sense it, you cannot endure. Elias closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, his gaze was sharp. You're wrong, he said calmly. I feel fear all the time. The queen looked at him, surprised. Elias went on, speaking loudly so the voice outside could hear. Fear isn't a switch for us, it's background noise, you don't control it, we do. There was a pause, the fear pressure wavered. Queen Surith felt it too. It falters, she said quietly. Elias nodded. They expect fear to mean surrender. He stepped closer to the door. Blood dripped onto the smooth floor, dark against pale stone. For humans, he continued, fear means prepare. The door shook, not from cutting tools this time. From force, something slammed against it again and again, testing strength rather than weakness. Elias braced himself, feet wide. They're done talking, he muttered. The door buckled inward slightly. A section cracked open, and a long, jointed limb forced its way through, metal and flesh combined, powerful and precise. Elias fired. The stun blast crawled along the limb, making it jerk back with a sharp sound. Another limb followed, then another. They're sending drones, Elias said. Remote-controlled. Because fear does not work, the queen replied. Exactly. The drones forced the door wider, metal screaming as it bent. Elias fired again and again, his shots slower now, each one costing more effort. One drone collapsed. Another pushed through. The queen raised her hands again, but this time she hesitated. It will harm me, she said. Elias glanced back at her. Then don't. If I do nothing, you will fall. Elias took a shaky breath. Then we both do something small. He grabbed a loose metal shard from the floor and tossed it toward a light panel near the ceiling. It shattered. Sparks rained down. The chamber lights flickered wildly. The queen understood instantly. She raised one hand, not to open her full sight, but to distort the room's energy field. The flickering lights became chaotic, flashing patterns that confused sensors and cameras. The drones hesitated. Their movements slowed, uncertain. Elias fired again, hitting weak points exposed by the disruption. One drone fell, then another. The last one pushed forward, damaged but still moving. Elias stepped into its path. The fear pressure surged hard, trying one last time. This time, Elias did not fight it. He remembered every time he had been afraid. Every time he stood anyway. He moved. The drone struck him, sending him crashing to the floor. Pain flared bright and sharp. His stun unit skidded away. The drone raised a blade-like tool. The queen cried out. Elias grabbed the drone's arm with both hands and pulled it down with him, twisting hard. The joint snapped with a grinding sound. He slammed the drone's head against the floor once, twice. It went still. Elias lay there, breathing hard, staring at the ceiling. For a moment he thought he might pass out. Then the queen knelt beside him. Her hands hovered over his wound, unsure. You should be dead, she said quietly. Elias laughed weakly. I've been told that before. She looked at him not as a ruler, not as a symbol, but as a being trying to understand another. You turn fear into strength, she said. How? Elias closed his eyes for a second. We don't turn it into strength, we live with it. It reminds us what matters. The queen was silent. Outside the chamber, distant fighting sounds grew louder, energy weapons, alarms restarting, voices shouting orders. The palace is waking, the queen said. My forces are regrouping. Elias smiled faintly. Took them long enough. She helped him sit up, supporting him despite her own fatigue. I saw your mind earlier, she said softly. Your memories, your losses. Elias looked at her. Sorry you had to see that. I am not, she replied. They explain why fear does not rule you. She stood, turning toward the throne once more. Her posture changed, stronger, resolved. Human Elias Ward, she said. Those who attacked believed fear was a universal language. Elias pushed himself to his feet with effort. Common mistake. The Queen's eyes burned with quiet fire. They will learn otherwise. Outside the sanctum, heavy footsteps approached again, but these were different. Ordered, disciplined, friendly. Elias leaned against the wall, exhausted but standing. Fear still existed. Pain still existed. But the door held. The Queen remained. And the humans, as always, had proven something simple and dangerous to the galaxy. Fear was never enough to make them kneel. The heavy metal slabs slid apart with a deep, controlled sound. Blue-white light poured into the chamber, washing over cracked stone, fallen drones, and dark stains on the smooth alien marble floor. Elias raised his stun unit on instinct. Then he stopped. The figures entering were not the attackers. They wore Royal Guard armor, but different from before. Their movements were steady. Their eyes were clear. Their formation was tight and disciplined. Behind them came officers, technicians, and finally a tall figure in command robes. The Queen exhaled slowly. "They are loyal," she said. "The fear field has weakened enough for them to return." Elias let his arm fall. The moment the danger passed, his strength followed it. His knees gave way. He did not hit the floor. Two guards caught him, surprised by his weight but strong enough to hold him up. "Easy," one said in the Queen's language, then switched awkwardly to trade speech. "Human, you are hurt." "Still standing," Elias muttered. "That counts." The Queen stepped forward. The guards immediately lowered their heads. She raised one hand. "Attend to him first," she ordered. There was hesitation. "Your Majesty," an officer began. "First," she repeated, her voice calm but absolute. That ended the discussion. Elias felt hands supporting him as he was lowered onto a portable medical platform brought in by palace medics. Bright scanning lights passed over his body. Cool air touched his skin as his uniform was carefully cut away near the wound. "Minor organ damage," a medic said. "Blood loss significant. He should not have remained active." Elias smiled weakly. "Yeah, I hear that a lot." The Queen watched silently as they worked. Her eyes did not leave him. Around them, the sanctum looked like a battlefield. Scorch marks blackened the walls. Decorative pillars lay shattered. Drones and enemy equipment were being examined by security teams. Blood stained the floor, human blood. The Queen's gaze lingered on it longer than necessary. When Elias was stable, the medics stepped back. "He will live," one said. The Queen nodded. "Good." Elias looked up at her. "Told you I'd buy time." She did not smile. Instead, she did something no one in the room expected. She bowed her head. It was a small movement, controlled, precise. But every guard, every officer, every medic froze in shock. A queen did not bow, not to anyone. "Human Elias Ward," Queen Surith said, her voice carrying through the chamber. "You stood when my guardians fled. You bled where others ran. You chose loyalty without command." She straightened. "I will remember this." Elias blinked, suddenly uncomfortable. You're welcome." A few guards exchanged confused glances. One looked faintly ashamed. The Queen turned to her officers. "Begin the purge, every corridor, every system, no mercy for infiltrators." "Yes, Your Majesty," they answered in unison. As the room emptied, the Queen remained with Elias and a small honor guard. She moved closer, studying him again, not with curiosity now, but with something deeper. "You did not act like a mercenary," she said. "Nor like a soldier bound by oath." Elias shifted slightly on the platform. "I was just doing my job." "No," she said firmly, "you were doing more." She paused, then continued. "When I entered your mind earlier, I saw a memory." Elias stiffened. "Which one?" "A moment where you stood between danger and someone weaker than you," she said. "And no one told you to." Elias looked away. "That was a long time ago." "It shaped you," she replied. He sighed. "Yeah, guess it did." The Queen folded her hands. "My species believes fear is the truest ruler, that it reveals the core of a being." She looked down at the blood-stained marble. "Tonight, fear revealed you instead." Outside the sanctum, alarms faded. The palace systems slowly came back online. Lights returned, steady and warm. The crisis was ending, but something else was beginning. Hours later, Elias lay in a quiet recovery chamber overlooking a garden of glowing alien plants. His side was bandaged, reinforced with advanced medical fabric that pulsed softly. He was awake, tired, aching, but awake. A soft chime sounded. The door opened. Queen Surith entered alone, no guards. Elias frowned. Your Majesty, isn't that against protocol?" She closed the door behind her. "Protocols change." She walked to the window, looking out at the calm garden. My people will say tonight was a victory, she said. The attackers were repelled, order restored. Elias nodded slowly. That's good. But they will not understand the truth, she continued. That my empire was saved by a species we believed fragile. Elias snorted. We break pretty easy. And yet you do not shatter, she said. You bend, you adapt. She turned to face him. Those attackers were not rebels, she said. They were observers. Elias' expression sharpened. Observers? A rival power, she explained. One that tests civilizations before conquest. Fear is their tool. Elias exhaled slowly. So this was a trial. Yes. And we passed, he asked. The queen's eyes glowed faintly. They expected my guards to flee. They expected my court to collapse. They expected fear to rule. She stepped closer. They did not expect you. Elias was quiet. That means, he said carefully, this isn't over. No, the queen agreed. It has only begun. She lowered her voice. They will return. And when they do, they will remember the human who stood alone in my sanctum. Elias grimaced. Great, I always wanted to be famous. The queen's lips curved slightly, not quite a smile, but close. You are already more than that, she said. She reached into a small container and placed a thin crystal emblem on the table beside him. A royal mark, she said. It means you are under my direct protection. Elias stared at it. That's a big deal, right? It means, she said, any who harm you declare war on my throne. Elias let out a slow breath. No pressure. The queen studied him for a long moment. Rest, she said finally. You will be needed again. For what? Elias asked. She turned toward the door. To remind the galaxy of something it has forgotten. She paused at the threshold. That fear does not own you, she said, and because of that it no longer owns us. The door closed softly behind her. Elias lay back against the cushions, staring at the ceiling. His body hurt. His mind was exhausted, but deep inside he felt something solid. He had stayed, and the universe had noticed. Lights glowed in every hall. Guards moved in clean formations. Repair drones hummed softly as they fixed shattered walls and sealed burned metal. To anyone watching from outside, the crisis looked finished. But inside the Queen's private council chamber, the air was tense. Queen Surith Vale stood at the center of a circular table made of living crystal. Around her sat her highest advisors, military commanders, intelligence seers, and political elders. Their faces were serious. Some were angry, some were afraid. All were speaking at once. The human should be removed, one elder said sharply. He draws attention. He is a risk, another added. The observers will focus on him. A military commander struck the table lightly with his claw. He embarrassed our guard. That alone will cause unrest. The queen raised one hand. Silence fell instantly. He saved my life, she said calmly. No one argued with that. Still, the intelligence seer leaned forward. Your Majesty, that is not in question, but the rival power will return. They now know humans resist fear weapons. Keeping him close puts the throne in danger. The queen's eyes narrowed slightly. Or it puts the throne under protection. The advisors exchanged uneasy glances. Our doctrine has always been survival through distance, the elder said. When threatened, we withdraw leadership and preserve the line. Yes, the queen replied. And tonight that doctrine almost ended us. The room grew quiet again. She turned slightly, her gaze distant. When the fear weapon struck, my guards ran, not because they were weak, but because they were built to fear failure more than death. She paused. The human was built for neither. The commander spoke again. He was injured. He cannot fight an invasion. No, the queen agreed, but he can change how others fight. Across the palace, Elia's ward lay awake. He should have been asleep. The medical systems encouraged it, sending gentle pulses through his bandages, easing pain, slowing his thoughts. But his mind would not rest. He stared at the ceiling, replaying moments from the attack, the door breaking, the drones, the queen's voice when she said she stayed. A soft chime sounded. Elias turned his head. The door opened and Queen Surith entered once more. This time she was not alone. 2 guards followed her, elite royal sentinels, their armor polished and weapons sealed. They stopped at the door and remained there, still as statues. Elias slowly sat up. This feels serious. It is, the queen said. She approached his bedside. Her expression was unreadable. Your medical status? She asked. I won't be running anytime soon, Elias replied, but I'll live. That was not my concern, she said. Your presence is, Elias frowned. Okay, she studied him for a long moment. Human Elias Ward, she said, my advisors believe you should leave the palace immediately. Elias nodded slowly. That makes sense. They fear you are a symbol, she continued. And symbols attract enemies. Elias exhaled. They're probably right. The Queen's eyes softened slightly. You agree so easily. I don't want to cause trouble, Elias said. I did what I could. If leaving keeps your people safe, then— No, she interrupted. He stopped. They are wrong, she said firmly. Elias blinked. About me? They believe safety comes from hiding, she said. From removing risk, she straightened. But tonight, safety came from someone who refused to leave. Elias was quiet. The Queen continued, there is an evacuation protocol reserved for moments of total collapse. It would remove me from this world within minutes. Elias' eyes widened. You're saying you could have escaped? Yes, she said. Even while you fought, he swallowed. Then why didn't you? The Queen's voice lowered. Because you stayed. Elias felt a strange tightness in his chest. You showed me something, she said. That leadership is not always about survival. Sometimes it is about presence. She turned away from him and looked toward the window. My advisors want me to activate the protocol now, she said, to leave this system before the observers return. Elias pushed himself to the edge of the bed, ignoring the pain. And what do you want? She faced him again. I want to stay, she said. The guards at the door shifted slightly, surprised. Elias shook his head slowly. That's dangerous. Yes, she agreed. That is why it matters. She stepped closer. If I flee, my people will learn fear is correct. That running is wisdom. She placed a hand over her chest. If I stay, they will remember that their queen chose risk over retreat. Elias met her gaze. You don't have to do this because of me. I am not, she replied. I am doing it because of what you revealed. She turned sharply toward the guards. Prepare the broadcast chamber. The guards straightened. Your Majesty, I will speak to the galaxy, she said. The broadcast went live across hundreds of systems. On screens large and small, Queen Surith Vale appeared, standing unarmored, alone except for one figure beside her. Elias Ward. He stood slightly behind her, leaning on a support frame, bandaged but upright. Whispers spread instantly. A human, in the royal chamber, alive. The Queen spoke clearly. Tonight my palace was attacked by a force that believes fear rules all life, she said. They believed my guards would run, they believed my people would break. Her eyes hardened. They were wrong. Murmurs spread. She gestured slightly toward Elias. This human had no obligation to me, no command, no bond of blood or code. Elias shifted, uncomfortable. He stayed, the Queen said simply. She raised her voice. And because he stayed, I stayed. The reaction was immediate: shock, confusion, awe. The Queen continued, let it be known, human Elias Ward is under my direct protection. Any harm to him will be answered by my throne. She paused. And let it also be known, she said, that my empire will no longer run from fear. The broadcast ended. In the silence that followed, Elias let out a long breath. Well, he said, that's one way to make things complicated. The Queen turned to him. You regret staying? He shook his head. No, I just didn't expect all this. She looked at him thoughtfully. Nor did I. A moment passed. Your advisors won't be happy, Elias said. They will learn, she replied. As I did. She stepped closer and lowered her voice. When the observers return, they will test us again. Elias nodded. They always do. And when they do, she said, they will not find a fleeing queen. She looked him directly in the eyes. They will find one who stands. Elias smiled, tired but real. Guess that makes two of us. Outside the chamber, the palace hummed with renewed purpose. Fear had not vanished, but it no longer ruled. The Queen had made her choice, and the galaxy was about to feel the weight of it. Across trade stations, military hubs, and distant colonies, the image of Queen Surith standing beside a wounded human replayed again and again. Analysts slowed the footage, soldiers watched in silence, rulers paused their meetings. A queen had declared protection over a human. That alone was shocking, but what truly unsettled the galaxy was why. In the palace, the effects were immediate. Sensors began to light up. Long-range scanners detected sudden changes in nearby space, ships adjusting course, fleets slowing their advance, signals cutting out mid-transmission. The intelligence seer rushed into the command chamber, eyes wide. Your Majesty, multiple foreign fleets have halted at the system edge. Queen Surith remained calm. Which fleets? All of them, the seer replied, even those not aligned with us. Elias, standing nearby with the help of a support brace, raised an eyebrow. That's not normal, is it? No, the Queen said, it is fear. Good kind? Elias asked. The careful kind, she replied. Far beyond the palace in the cold dark between stars, the observers watched as well. Their ships were hidden, silent, ancient, designed to see without being seen. For centuries they had ruled by one simple truth: all species broke when fear was applied correctly. Tonight that truth cracked. A tall observer stood before a floating projection of the broadcast. Its voice was flat, controlled. The human disrupted the outcome. Another observer replied. The Queen's response was illogical. Not illogical, the first corrected. Adaptive. There was a pause. Humans resist fear weapons, one said, not by strength, by disorder. Disorder is unstable, another replied. Unreliable. Yes, the first said, and therefore dangerous. A command signal pulsed through their fleet. Withdraw, for now. Back in the palace, the tension did not fade. Queen Surith stood at the central tactical display with her commanders. Elias sat nearby, monitored by medical drones that hovered like patient insects. A fleet commander spoke. The rival power has retreated beyond scanning range. A murmur of relief spread through the room. Elias frowned. They didn't attack. No, the Queen said. They measured. She turned to her commanders. And what did they learn? That fear weapons are less effective against humans, one said. That leadership presence matters, another added reluctantly. The Queen nodded. And that we are no longer predictable. She turned her gaze toward Elias. They will return, she said, but not with fear alone. Elias sighed. They never do once that trick fails. Hours later, something unexpected happened. A human ship appeared at the edge of the system. Then another, then 10 more. The palace sensors struggled to keep up as dozens of vessels dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. Their designs were clearly human, angular, practical, scarred by use. The communications officer's voice shook. Your Majesty, it's the Terran Defense Fleet. Elias stared at the display. That's fast. Queen Surith looked at him sharply. How fast? He swallowed. That jump should have taken weeks. The room went quiet. A secure channel opened. A calm human voice filled the chamber. This is Admiral Hayes of the Terran Defense Fleet. We are responding to a royal protection declaration involving a human citizen. Elias closed his eyes. Yeah, they noticed. The Queen stepped forward. This is Queen Surith Vale. You have my gratitude for your speed. There was a brief pause. Then the Admiral replied, With respect, Your Majesty, we were already on standby. The Queen's eyes narrowed. You expected this? Not this exact situation, the Admiral said. But humanity prepares for worst-case scenarios, especially when fear-based warfare is involved. Elias opened one eye. Of course we do. The arrival of the human fleet sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Neutral powers hesitated. Aggressive empires recalculated. The observers, watching from afar, took careful note. Humans did not boast. They did not threaten. They simply arrived. Queen Surith addressed the human admiral again. Your presence will be seen as an escalation. Yes, the Admiral replied calmly. That's the point. Elias chuckled softly. That's definitely him. The Queen studied the human ships on the display, how they positioned themselves not in attack formation but in defense, how they placed themselves between her world and open space. They are protecting my system, she said. They are protecting you, the Admiral corrected. By your declaration, one of ours stands with you. That makes this personal. The Queen felt something unfamiliar stir in her chest. Not fear, not pride, respect. Later, Elias stood on a balcony overlooking the planet's capital city. The lights stretched endlessly, calm and bright. Queen Surith joined him. You did not tell your people to come, she said. No, Elias replied, but they know the rules. She tilted her head. Which are? If a human stands alone, Elias said, someone else makes sure they aren't alone for long. She considered this. Your species does not value hierarchy as we do. We value choice, he said. Staying is a choice, helping is a choice. The Queen looked back toward the sky where human ships now shone like silent guardians. My people believed fear kept order, she said, but fear only controls until it fails. And then, Elias asked. Then something stronger takes its place, she said. Trust, example. Courage, she turned to him. You taught us that. Elias shook his head. I just did what felt right, she nodded slowly. That is what makes it powerful. A final message arrived that night, not hostile, not friendly, just a signal. The observers had left a marker at the edge of the system, a symbol recognized by ancient empires. We see you. The Queen stared at it on the display. Elias leaned on the railing beside her. That's not a threat, he said. No, she agreed. It is acknowledgement, she straightened. The galaxy is watching now. Elias smiled faintly. Good, maybe they'll learn something. The Queen looked at him, then at the stars. They will, she said, because somewhere between fear and fire, between throne and battlefield, a simple truth had become impossible to ignore. When humans arrive, they do not come to rule. They come to stand. And when they stand, the galaxy pays attention, trade resumed. Borders stabilized. Fear-based weapons quietly disappeared from black markets. Some powers denied they had ever studied them at all. But everyone remembered the moment when a queen stayed and a human stood beside her. Elia's ward did not become famous. That surprised many people. After the broadcast, reporters requested interviews. Political leaders wanted meetings. Even distant worlds sent messages asking to study the human resistance to fear. Elias refused all of it. He healed slowly, then returned to duty just as quietly as he had lived before. When asked why, he always gave the same answer. Someone has to stay normal, he said. Queen Surith understood. Inside her empire, change moved like a slow river. The Queen ordered a full review of military doctrine. Genetic fear conditioning was removed, not all at once, but piece by piece. Training shifted from obedience to understanding, from control to trust. At first, there was resistance. Fear was familiar, fear was comfortable, but something unexpected happened. Soldiers began to perform better, units held positions longer. Guards did not panic when systems failed. Commanders noticed fewer breakdowns, fewer retreats without reason. When asked why, one guard answered simply, "We are allowed to choose now." That answer spread. 1 year after the attack, Queen Surith stood once more in the restored sanctum. The marble had been replaced, polished to a brighter shine. The walls bore no scorch marks. The throne platform looked untouched by history. But the Queen remembered. Before her stood representatives from many species. Allies, neutrals, even former rivals. At the center of the room stood a single statue covered in a ceremonial cloth. Queen Surith raised her hand. The cloth fell. The statue was not large, not dramatic. It showed a human, unarmored, standing upright, one hand raised slightly as if blocking a doorway. There was no weapon in his grip, no heroic pose, just a stance, a choice. The Queen spoke. "This statue does not honor power," she said. "It honors presence." She turned to the gathered delegates. "On the night my palace fell, guards ran, systems failed, fear ruled." Her gaze sharpened. "One being stayed," she gestured to the statue, "not because he was commanded. Not because he was bound, but because leaving was not acceptable to him." Silence filled the room. "Let this place remember," the Queen said, "that courage is not the absence of fear." She paused. "It is the decision to remain." Elias did not attend the unveiling. He was on a small transport ship, sitting by a window watching stars slide past. His mission was simple. Escort duty, quiet, almost boring. He liked it that way. A young human officer sat across from him, clearly nervous. "Sir," the officer said, "is it true you stood alone against an entire assault force?" Elias sighed. "No," the officer blinked. "But the reports—" "I stood with someone," Elias corrected. "That's different." The officer frowned, thinking. "Doesn't that still scare you?" the officer asked. Elias considered the question carefully. "Yes," he said, "every time." The officer waited. "But fear isn't a stop sign," Elias continued. "It's a reminder." "A reminder of what?" the officer asked. Elias looked out at the stars. "Of what you'd regret running from." Far away, Queen Surith stood on her private balcony looking at the same stars. Her empire was stronger now, not larger, not louder, stronger. She had refused multiple offers to expand territory by force. Instead, she formed alliances built on shared defense and shared risk. When advisors questioned her restraint, she answered with one sentence, "Fear-built empires collapse the moment fear fails." She thought of Elias often, not as a symbol, as a lesson. In time, a phrase began to spread. It started among traders and soldiers, then diplomats, then civilians. It was spoken quietly at first. "If a human is still standing, you're not alone." No one knew who said it first, but everyone understood what it meant. The observers watched from deep space. They no longer interfered directly. They analyzed, calculated, adjusted. Their fear models no longer worked. Human unpredictability had contaminated the data, but worse, other species were changing too. They were learning, standing, choosing. One observer transmitted a final internal report. "Fear is no longer sufficient," it stated. "Presence creates resistance." Years later, Elia's ward returned once more to the Queen's world. Not as a guard, not as a hero, as a guest. He stood again in the sanctum, now filled with light and life. Children of many species walked freely through halls once guarded by fear. Queen Surith approached him, older now but steady. "You see," she said softly, "they no longer run." Elia smiled. "They never had to, they just needed permission." She studied him. "You never asked for anything," he shrugged. "Didn't need to," she looked at him seriously. "If you had, what would you have asked for?" Elias thought for a moment. "A future where staying matters," he said. The Queen nodded. "Then that is what we will protect." They stood together in silence, not ruler and guard, not queen and human. Just two beings who understood the cost and value of staying. When Elias left that world for the last time, there were no ceremonies, no broadcasts, just a quiet send-off. He returned to Earth, anonymous once more, but across the galaxy his choice echoed, not in songs, not in legends, but in moments when fear whispered run.